Jesse Stevens has now knocked out 3 wins on the trot. The season began looking like another championship easily going Karl Modov's way, but things have drastically turned around and suddenly Stevens has the upper hand. Will Mid-Ohio be Karl's chance to strike back? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 8 of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Ossian Puhaka. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. With a track that contains sports car course and part of its official name, these GTE cars should feel right at home. To see why they're so snug here at Mid-Ohio, why don't we head down to our track guide. All right, we've got Reed Miller in the GSRC 4 GT, so let's do a lap around Mid-Ohio. Down the front stretch, turn 1 immediately throws you a challenge. This is a fast corner where if something goes wrong, you'll be sailing off into the gravel very quickly. It'll be important to make sure you get a good run off of here because it's an uphill climb all the way to the next braking zone at the keyhole. This is the first of very few good chances to pass someone on this short lap. If you can't get it done here though, it's much better to square up your exit off this hairpin. That's because it's the longest acceleration zone of the track on your way down the backstretch. Get yourself a decent run on your opponent and it's much easier to simply overtake them in a straight line. If that doesn't happen, eventually you reach China Beach and you can try to outbrake them. But it's a challenge no matter which side you choose. The track immediately switches back into madness so you can see passes made to the right or the left. Now you're into the more technical portion of the lap and you can expect the racing to be mostly single file. You need a bit of patience on the throttle until the S's, but as soon as you weave through those, you're easing the car into the awkward braking for the jump. It's hard enough going in, but the crest coming off requires you to be gentle on the throttle as well. Now you fly through Thunder Valley where you've got to hold as close to the Armco on the right as you dare. You need that space to give you the widest angle possible into 11. There's no time to relax because this all ends with the carousel. Late apexing this never-ending turn will be important because you're not lifting your right foot until the first corner again. But hopefully you've now finished a lap around Mid-Ohio. You see a lap around Mid-Ohio, but Ossian, why don't you tell us about the specifics about this place?
Well, you got 2.25 miles, 3.6 kilometers, 13 turns, and some of the most beautiful corners in North America. It is a track of two natures. You got the fast sweeping left-hander to begin with, a straight, a hairpin, another straight, turns a little bit to the right. Pretty normal so far, is that not? Well, right after that you come to the technical section, twisty corners, up the hill, down the hill, fast left, fast right, sweeping, over crest you come. It feels like a rally track, and then you join once again onto the main straight after the most deceptive last corners in racing. Yes, even more so than at Sebring. So Mid-Ohio, a gem pretty much in the middle of the nowhere in northeastern Ohio, but if you ever get a chance, do visit this place. It is absolutely beautiful, Joe.
It is, and I have actually had a couple chances in my lifetime to go see racing here, and you're right, it is very much in the middle of nowhere. It's not out of the realm to see horses and buggies with Amish people riding around the track. Not on the track itself, mind you. But anyways, let's get to the sponsor, because as always, today's race is brought to you by SIMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at simsa.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. The winner of Division 1 here in the PRL GTE Sportscar Series will get a Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or a simulation kit. Also, both drivers of the winning team in the Teams Championship will get a free t-shirt. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Speaking of those championships, let's take a look at the Drivers' Championship up first. And Jesse Stevens, as I mentioned, now takes over the lead and 9 points ahead of Carl Modoff. Stephen Ash still plugging away at getting those good finishes, but now starting to fall well behind. He needs to get some wins if he wants to get amidst those two leaders. Michael Ross and Sean Romig are much closer together than Ash is to those leaders. You can see only a couple points separating 4th and 5th. Let's take a look at the Teams Championship as well, Ozzy.
Yes, thank you, Joe. And it's looking very tight in the team department. Radicals Online have now taken the lead. Jesse Stevens, Jason Hodgson with 288 points. But it's Mac Miller, Stephen Ash, Full Send Racing. Can they climb back? Only 4 points behind the lead. And hey, it's the Punto guys. Punto CL Racing Blue, Ignacio Fredes, Horacio Calguin, 6 points behind the lead. Just 2 points behind the second place. GDR Ventus Rensport SET Ford and SRT Esport Blue are sitting on the 5th position. And I believe, Joe, you do have the race details for us.
Do indeed. We mentioned we are in round 8 today, and well, the drivers will have 60 minutes to complete this race in the 4 different makes of cars you see there listed above. It is an open setup series, but they've limited the fuel, so there is 1 expected stop for fuel before the race is done. They do get some penalties if they abuse the track limits a little bit too much, and they've got some bonus points that you see listed at the bottom. Those have been important so far this season with how tight things have been. Now, that could, of course, change if we see another win for Jesse Stevens. We'll get to that in just a moment to see how that's looking here in qualifying. Of course, as always, we're brought to you on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe to the channel. And for information on how to start your iRacing career, log on to iRacing.com. You too could take part in leagues such as this and get racing today. Very easy to do so, just with that address you see on the screen. Right now in the qualifying, surprisingly, Nicholas Rubilar has the pole away from Jesse Stevens, but it's a very tight fight between those two, Ozzy, and I have to admit, I don't remember Nicholas being quite this quick.
No, but he's showing some pace out here today. However, 7 milliseconds. That's all there is between Rubilar and Stevens. Michael M. Ross sitting in 4th place with Rodrigo Mies sitting in 3rd place, with Ross and Mies sitting in 4th place. 5 milliseconds between those two guys. So, as usual in Mid-Ohio, it will be tied in qualifying, and the qualifying position is also super mega important, Joe. We will talk about that in length soon, but one of the key things in tonight's strategy of the race, I think, will be just, qualify well, because it's very, 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 very super mega hyper difficult to overtake here.
Certainly got opportunities, but like you said, you got to set them up and really be prepared. As we watch Rubilar come across for another lap. This one even quicker now. So, remember those 7 milliseconds? Jesse Stevens got actually a little over a 10th now to try and make up. Oh,
Never
and
mind.
He just improved. And is this going to put him on the pole? It does, by 3/10 over Rubilar. Nicholas is getting back out on track, so he has time to respond. But wow, Jesse Stevens slams that time down on the table and says, match this.
I mean, go to Narnia. Go straight to Narnia without taking the closet. That's the time Jesse Stevens just put in on the board. 0.3 of a second to Nicolas Rubilar. Rodrigo Mies 0.6 away. Michael Ross 0.7 away. And Carl Modoff 0.8 away, sitting only in 6th place. So it is looking dire straits for Carl so far. But let's remember, it is still a long qualifying session and a long race after.
Yeah, Carl hasn't put as many laps in this qualifying as some of his rivals. He's only completed 2 of them. His first one looks like he had an off somewhere in there. So the 9.48 hasn't had as many chances to try and cross the line to lower that. We'll see if he does that here in the final 5 minutes. Stevens, who's coming around the carousel and out of the final corner. That line comes quick. Let's see if it's even faster. No, he was slower this time, and he's going to pull it over. Maybe take some fresh tires and see if he can try again. Rubilar's coming to the line. That was his out lap, so that one doesn't count. He's pulling along some of his teammates. Looks like Cal Quinn behind him, and then Fred is at the back of him.
I think their train is evolving now. Karl Modov didn't improve, by the way. He's got Ken Huber ahead of him right now, and he's going for another lap. But yeah, the Punto GD train is evolving. It has now taken over the qualifying as well. Usually we see that show for new viewers, if they're wondering what we're on about. Punto CL Racing has seen some trains in past races, from the 4th, 5th place, usually to 7th to 8th place. You always seen a 3-car, maybe even 4-car Punto battle train going on amidst the top 10. But now, in qualifying too, well, this is next level.
Watching Tremblay with a big problem out of the final corner. And then Michael Ross, who's sitting in 4th. He's coming down the line, and that's going to be a non-lap for him. That means next up it'll be Rodrigo Mies. He's trying to get onto the front row. He hit an 18.7 his last lap. That's been his quickest. This one seems to be a non-lap, as that one did not count for him. Rubilar is going to get a shot to try and one-up Jesse Stevens. That'll be a big jump if he does so. And it's not going to be this time. A 19.4 is well off the pace for him.
Modov is looking for a clean lap once again, coming to the main straight in the last corner, going very wide. 18.937, he improves, but only just. So Karl Modov really under some difficulty, and he was cutting turn 1 too much there as well. I don't see the Porsche driver being very happy at all here.
And we have had some of that dreaded word that everybody in sports car racing hates, BOP, recently from iRacing. So that should have neutralized some of the Ford GTs, since they added some drag from what I understand. So it shouldn't be quite as quick in a straight line. But as you pointed out, there's really only 2 long straight portions in this track.
Yeah, and Modov actually, no need to go to it, but Modov spun exiting the keyhole as well, so he's having some difficulty, and he only has 3 minutes to improve his time. So I don't know, Car, you could be starting further back than you intend.
Ross not going to be able to improve. He doesn't really have time to get back out here for a quick one. Neither does Mies. The 88 just came through turn 1. He will be able to go right. Whoa, and I spoke too soon. Mies just went off too, coming out of the very treacherous turn 1. You know, honestly, Ossian, I feel like that's one of the more unassuming, difficult corners in all of racing. This very fast one we see Stevens coming through right now.
Yeah, because it's not really cambered at all. In fact, it has a slight bit of negative camber. Then you have a high curve on the inside. You have to hit it just right, and it's so difficult to hit the apex of that corner, finding the apex and then hitting the apex. And you can't really see the brake markers too well on the right, and it's very difficult to gauge where you go, where to turn in. And then when you exit the corner, you suddenly come uphill, so you come over the top, so to speak, and then you come uphill on the exit. And because of the wide exit curve that is quite lenient, it is very easy to use it, but it's also very easy to abuse it and end up paying the price by going too wide. And I believe those poor cones on the exit of turn number 1, they will fly today.
Yeah, they've had their share of views. Jean-Marc Tremblay, let's see if he can get higher than 14th, a little bit far down for the 27. Nope, no dice this time by. Mies, we saw him have his off, so that lap won't count for him. Rubilar still working to try and pass Stevens as he goes by this spinning Strycar. And a slow one for Rubilar. I wonder if he's slowed up because of that car ahead. This starts his final attempt this lap.
Yeah, and it's gonna be final roll of the dice for the pole position here at Mid-Ohio. It's gonna be Rubilar. Stevens behind him, Fredes as well. Don't discount him. He may be in 11th position, but he is a fast guy when he feels he is up to the task, and a couple of other guys as well trying to still improve their times. Karl Modov not gonna be among those. He pulled into the pit lane. So one of our championship contenders is out of the picture when we talk about pole position.
Horatio Calquin also comes into pit lane, so he will do no better than 5th. Looking to see who else from our front runners are out still trying, because it seems like many have abandoned already. Duhamel's still in 19th, even though, no, excuse me, he jumps up to 16th with that lap, so he's able to improve. Mees is coming across now. 3rd place, still looking for the front row. 18.7 is his fastest. What's this one going to be? Not quicker. Last try as we're down to 5 seconds. And Rubilar, who will just come across the line as the flag waves, doesn't have that lap count, unfortunately. He must have had an off track.
Yeah, and trying a little bit too hard there, Fredes as well. Fredes actually improved. He went to the 6th place. So that's an improvement for him and actually drops Karmodov down to 7th.
Wow, Carl just having a nightmare of a day here in qualifying. Romig in his Porsche stays put. Then it's Ted Lowendick up next in the 172. Up to that long carousel, late apexing it, trying to get himself the launch, tucking it down nice and tidy. Will that 119.1 improve? No, it will not. He was just hundredths off. Russo does improve, though, in 19.2. That gets him into 12th place. Mac Miller, Ken Huber going to be the next across the line.
Yeah, Ken Huber, he's looking quite tidy. He's been catching up to Mac Miller all lap long. Let's see if he improves on that 19.4. He does, and goes past Sean Romig, a 19.3. So a nice effort from our resident Ferrari driver. And tell you what, we haven't seen too many of those guys.
I think Mees is going to be the last one, and he improves. Is that enough? No. Mees will stay in 3rd place despite going mildly quicker, but our grid is now set. So let's go through our starting order here for round 8 at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Jesse Stevens, he will be starting on the pole, and another critical bonus point for Jesse. Nicholas Rubilar starting 2nd next to him. He looked quick at first, but got stomped in the end with a massive gap to that pole position time. Rodrigo Mees will be starting in 3rd, with Michael Ross rounding out row 2. Horatio Calquin, I mentioned he can only start as good as 5th. Well, he stayed there. Nobody beat him. And then Ignacio Fredes will be starting in P6. Inside of row 4, Carl Modoff in 7th, with Brandon Wilson starting in 8th. Christian Eisler in 9th, and then rounding out the top 10, a shocker for Stephen Ash down there in P10.
Ted Lowendick starting 11th, Rafael Russo behind him, actually alongside him in 12th. Ken Huber 13th, Sean Romig 14th, then it's Jean-Marc Tremblay 15th, Brett Herman 16th, Kyle Strykart 17th, Sean Duhamel 18th, Mac Miller 19th, Kenny Rodriguez 20th, then Don Olson and Dave Peterson rounding out your 22 car field in Mid-Ohio. Now, some would say that's fairly few, Joe, but I think that's plenty enough considering how narrow and how short this track really is.
Yeah, it's about the size of an IndyCar field when they come and visit, so I'd say you're right. It should be good enough for some fun today. Interesting note is that it's extremely tight in the mid-pack in the qualifying, even though it's farther separated up at the top, Ozzy. I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is because I lost my timing here on what the exact split is from 4th to 10th.
Well, I don't have the exact one, but I do believe it's around 2/10 of a second.
Whew.
So Michael M. Ross, Horatio Calquin, Ignacio Fredes, Carl Modov, Brandon Wilson, Christian Eisler, and Stephen Ash all within 2/10 of a second. Of course, Jesse Stevens up on top nearly by half a second. But after those guys, it's gonna be an unbelievable midfield battle all race long. You can actually count on that right now. I don't think we'll know who finishes in P number 3 until the checkered flag flies. We don't have a clear consensus. It's gonna be that tight.
And it looks like everybody is now gridded up. It's a short pace lap here at Mid-Ohio, so we shouldn't have to wait too long for that Porsche pace car to peel into pit lane. There he goes, taking off up and over. Out of Thunder Valley is what they call it down there. Been there, and it's actually a great viewing spot. There's some lovely hills on either side that you can see them blast through there, up and over this crest. The tricky turn 11, and then it dumps you immediately into the carousel. But That's going to dump the pace car into pit lane because there he goes. Porsche pace cars in. Stevens has control. Green flag is out. He doesn't get the greatest of starts, although he immediately pulls in front of Rubelar. Rubelar might have the inside line. He does. He gets a good launch. He's down with an overlap into the first turn, but can he get the launch off of it? Side by side, it's a drag race up to the keyhole. Desired line goes to Jesse Stevens, who holds the inside. Behind them, giving watch Mies, waiting to see how this all plays out. He manages to get a little bit of overlap with Rubelar, but now they get single file with some wheel spin from Mies off the corner.
And it's a clean start from the back. Ken Huber spun in turn number 1, but aside from that, it was very clean and very good all the way through first couple of corners.
Stevens might have been kicking himself there for that start. He almost threw away the lead. Those Punto CL drivers are close up behind now as they head into madness for the first time. And Rodrigo Mies definitely giving chase on that second place car as well. In fact, the top 4 are pretty tightly packed together. Michael Ross in his Ford GT coming up and over the leap and down into Thunder Valley now.
Yeah, and further back, there's some great jostling for position all the way through these guys. Couple of lockups as well with the cold tires. That's as expected, but these guys, they are really professionals. They're really doing well to keep it all under control because, folks, this is much more difficult than it looks.
Leading lap 1, Stevens, Rubelar, Mies, Ross, and Modov is your top 5. So Modov up 2 positions at the start. He may not seem to have the pace over 1 lap, but I guess when it comes to the race itself, he's got it under control. Let's see if he can catch up to these top 4.
The man's got a racecraft of a champion. He is a champion for a good reason. Now let's see how well he uses that racecraft and combines it with his pace, which he is lacking. So he's like a soldier with a dull sword. He's like going into the battle, his sword is not sharp, he knows it. He has to use his shield and he has to maneuver to his advantage to still win this battle. I'll tell you what, there's a giant in the lead and he has to defeat the giant. Will he be able to do it? I'm not too sure. It's gonna take a mistake, I think, from Jesse Stevens, but we'll have to just wait and see, I suppose. The good thing for Carl right now is that Stevens hasn't pulled too big of a gap yet to Nicolas, to Rodrigo, and to Michael behind him.
Yeah, it's been a bit single file up there, and no mistakes forthcoming quite yet, as you can see. It's closer back in 9th with Eisler and Fredes, 2 more Punto CL cars. And they're coming up back to turn 1. Sometimes you might get passes into the keyhole. Let's see if Ignacio gets himself a good enough run up the hill. It's decent, but I don't think this is close enough.
No, it's not gonna be close enough. He's not gonna have a good run. Let's see, up onto the back straight towards China Beach. Well, he got a better exit, but I don't know if teammates start battling just yet. Even though we've seen some interesting strategies from those guys, I don't think they're gonna be starting the battle just yet. Fredes has very little to gain unless Eisler is running into difficulties early on.
And just like you say, he's not going to make an attempt yet. A little bit wide there through China Beach. Eisler finding the car sliding around here early on. We're getting some cloud cover, and it's cool, but not extremely cool. Only 85 degrees Fahrenheit on the track right now. In fact, this, I would say, is pretty ideal.
It is pretty ideal for racing. In fact, it is 27 degrees Celsius, that is, for the air temp. That is around 84, 83 Fahrenheit, and that's a little bit warm for my taste, but it's pretty ideal in terms of track temps right now, just under 30 degrees Celsius. And as you said, ideal, very good grip still, but doesn't provide, too many problems with the cold tires and so on, because when it gets colder, it can be really difficult to get those tires up to heat, and when you have difficulty bringing those tires up to heat, you usually see a lot of spins in first lap. This time we only saw the 1.
So we're watching those top 4 once again. This is set in May virtual time as well here in virtual Ohio. And I can tell you 80 degrees in May sounds about right to me. It can get a little bit muggy at times. 6th place also looking like it might. And just behind them a spinner.
Stephen Ash Stephen Nash spun around onto the China Beach, and he is the first victim of that corner, all by his lonesome.
Well, I don't think we're going to see a podium from him today, unfortunately. That Porsche is set well down the field from that, and full send is right. Send it right into the kitty litter. Thankfully, was able to keep the car going and get it back onto track pretty immediately without hitting anything.
Yeah, he's back in 19th place, though. That's gonna be a steep hill to climb for Stephen Nash. We know he's got the pace, but you know he's been Mr. Consistency this season. Had joined most podiums before the Spa race, I do believe at least. So he was very good. And now all of a sudden, when the push comes to shove, he's making mistakes like these. He has his teammate Mac Miller ahead of him. So the full send guys who are, let's remember, chasing the championship lead, they are sitting in 18th and 19th. That's a disaster for those guys.
Bad news for fans of Ken Huber. He had a little bit of a spin on the front stretch, clouded the wall, and he's since left the race. So that's our first DNF of the day. We're down to 21 left out on track now.
Oh, and Brandon Wilson made a mistake on the China Beach corner, ran a little bit wide. Frederic is right behind him, and here we go, seeing a replay of that one. So Brandon Wilson coming to China Beach, and he ran a little bit wide, came back to the track, couldn't control the car really, and I don't know. I mean, Brandon has to return to the track at some point, but then again, I suppose Eisler was thinking he's gonna be clear of him. I don't know, that's a clumsy one really.
It was. I kind of put it more on Eisler because he saw where the car was and he was on track by the time he reached that corner. And hopefully this isn't too much damage for him.
Yeah, I agree. And Brandon Wilson, he's a guy who has the pace. He was 8th fastest in qualifying. Despite the mistake, he's still sitting in 7th place. He has the pace. But, you know, from having watched him all throughout the season, and I was actually on the same split as him in the Nürburgring 24-hour race. And I have to tell you, he needs to improve his consistency, and then he's going to be golden. As we jump on to P number 4, Michael Ross and Karmodov.
Modov's trying to get more spots here. Remember, he's already gained 2 since the start of this race, and we're only 8 minutes in. That is Michael Ross just in front of him in that matte black Ford. They come down out of the S's and into the leap once again. Let's see what he can gain here. They're starting to lose touch with those ahead of him. Mies is pulled away by about 1.3 seconds. So there is definite impetus for the 948 to try and make a move here soon if he feels he's faster.
Yeah, and he's lucky in a sense that he's racing Michael Ross. He's no pushover, but Michael Ross, a very intelligent driver. He knows when to fight and when to rather, live to fight another day. Pick your battles. That is one of the most important things about racecraft. I'd say the number one thing. Pick your battles. And this is a battle I'm not too sure Michael Ross should be picking at this stage of the race. We are just 10 minutes in, 50 minutes left. You've got a championship contender behind him. If he makes a move, I would say it's good for Michael Ross to let him by, concentrate running on his own race, and come back at him at the later portions. Here we go. Karmodov onto the China Beach, and exactly as the prophecy told, Michael Ross let him by pretty easily.
Almost thought he was going to send it in too deep, but he managed to get the car to turn in. So Modov now up to P4. However, it's already 2.1 seconds up to Mies. We'll keep an eye on that split and see if those two come back together. You talked about Wilson earlier. He is still holding up a train. Fredez, Eisler, Russo, Lowendick is now joined. Actually, there's more even behind them. Romig, Thurman. This goes all the way back to 14th.
Yep, and the more they battle, the more the guys behind them have a chance. Remember, Kyle Strikeart, he's no slowpoke. He's in 15th behind them, and behind them side by side for Kenny Rodriguez. Whoa, Stephen Nash went past him. Okay, I'm gonna need a replay of that one. Stephen Nash round the outside of Kenny Rodriguez into the last sector of this track, because that was insane. Joe, talk us through it.
I would not be willing to make this move. This is a scary corner, especially in cars of this pace. Look, he's got the overlap here. and he's fending him off. But then somehow, even in the marbles, he finds the grip and just blows past him. That was a power move.
Low-key move of the year.
I think, yeah, that one to me is worthy of an eye-raising top 10 because that is not easy to do.
And here he comes
Meanwhile,
again. Stephen Ash onto Sean Duhamel for 16th, and this one was far easier for Stephen Ash. So he's climbing and he's going a little bit sideways on those exits, but tell you what, he's gapped the Kyle Streichhardt last time by. It wasn't too bad, just 3.3 seconds, and onto the battle frame, 6 seconds. So, you know, when we go back to Brandon Wilson, Ignacio Fredes, Christian Eisler, if they do start battling, they're gonna allow Stephen Ash to potentially come back into the top 10 the more they hold this train up.
that train is still very, very tight up at the top because Wilson has got Fredes just about a car length behind him. And we don't have to go to it, but I can tell you that Ash got strikers. I think Kyle made a bit of a mistake there coming through the through the carousel, but into the keyhole. A mistake from Wilson, going a little bit deep and locking him up. Fredes has to get on the binders. He still gets a decent exit. He's going to get the slipstream on top of it. Looks to the outside as Wilson tries to defend. If he can power his way around this first apex, Fredes will get the inside on the entry to Madness. No, he's going to try for a switch over, which doesn't usually go well here.
Double. Oh no, almost got it.
Still, he stays behind. The 96 has clearly got something there. Just he's got to execute. You talked about the difficulty trying to get by cars, and I think Fredes is discovering that firsthand.
Yeah, you gotta force them onto the wrong line here. And then you just have to force them to defend, and eventually they will crack and they will make a mistake. It's so difficult, and here we see it actually now. Brandon Wilson got a little bit loose on braking, and Fredes is an experienced driver. He's seeing this, he knows. He's just waiting for Brandon Wilson to crack and make that decisive mistake and make that move on him. But yeah, the double crossover he tried earlier, nice idea, but in the end, you know, I don't know. He was just a little bit short. Here he goes to the inside again. Brandon taking more to the outside. Fredes again going for too small of a gap there, and that's gonna ruin his run onto the back straight. So my tip for the driver of that 96 car, patience, young Padawan.
And that's actually going to bring Eisler a bit into things. I thought for sure that Wilson was going to get tipped around by that move through the keyhole. Thankfully, they did not make contact.
These guys are professionals. Come on. Put your faith in them. But yeah, that was close.
As they go through Madness once more, you really get a sense of all the elevation change through here. They come up and over the leap. Ooh, he's getting that ground right back that he lost with that failed attempt in the keyhole. He is right back there once again. Oh, and he's strong up and over turn 11. Gained a bunch of time through there.
Yeah, that's a 4 GD corner. 10 coming into this penultimate one, and the last one just a sweep to the left and onto another lap as we see the sun setting actually over the skies of Ohio, but these guys are still racing. The darker it gets, the more they put on the throttle. Fredes spins into the wall, spearheads it, and that's a terrible crash for Ignacio Fredes. He is somehow able to keep going. Right side wheels on grass, and cue the replay.
Yeah, that impact was severe, and I'm not sure. I had expect him to be coming in this lap after that. Oh. So thankfully he didn't come back onto the racing line. Everybody was able to just squeak on through. He's riding in 14th right now, and guess who's just behind him? Well, it's Stephen Ash. I think he should make easy pickings here at the 96.
Yeah, indeed so. But the good thing for Fredes is that the way he hit that wall, he spun and hit the inside wall head on. Now, normally that would be a death sentence for the car, absolutely. But these cars, almost all of them are mid-engined, as is the Ford GTE. So aero damage, yeah, but those wheels, they look fine. The suspension looks fine. Sure, the car can't be running at 100% anymore, but there's less damage than one would initially think, as is showcased by Fredes keeping going.
Interesting. I thought for sure that would be too much to handle. Down in 10th place, now that train is split up a little bit, Ted Lowendick being chased by Romig and Thurman. And they come up the run to the keyhole, a little bit too far apart for any sort of moves. Let's see if anybody gets the shot off the turn.
Well, both get about equal runs, so I don't think the teammates are gonna battle here too much just yet. It might be a possibility though, because they got Brett Thurman behind them as well, as is Jean-Marc Tremblay trying to hold on to the back of this queue. So the unfortunate thing for those guys, Sean Romig and Thurman, is that Ted Lowendick, who is leading this little pack, is half a second slower per lap than the pack ahead of him. Rafael Russo, 7/10 slower than Christian Eisler, and again half a second slower than Brandon Wilson. So despite Brandon being doing his best Jarno Trulli impression there, they are still losing ground.
Everything's starting to split apart a little bit in that mid-pack. We had that close fight you wanted. It just seems to have dissipated. In fact, why don't we glance at our leaders, since it's been a bit since we've looked at them with all that action. And Jesse Stevens is keeping Rubelar back at about 2 seconds currently. Nicholas not losing huge margins, but still falling backwards slightly. And Rodrigo Mies is about equidistant back from that at 1.8.
Karl Modov in 4th place. Look at him. Last time by 119.3. Rodrigo Mies 18.9. Jesse Stevens 18.5. So Karl Modov, last lap alone, 8/10 of a second the gap to leader. Now 7 seconds. 7.1 as a matter of fact. So Karl, he's sitting in 4th, but he's not doing too well so far.
Last win for Karl was round 4 in Spa. So he's been due for a win here. Just doesn't look likely today. We ride on board with Karl. And over turn 11, showing you just how scary it is through that crest. And getting the car woed up. Taking that second late apex. Back onto the front stretch once again to complete another lap. Interesting note. Oh, and do we have a problem? No, it was a towed car. Dave Peterson. Looks like Peterson had a single car incident. Don't need a replay, but he sent it into the tires in the keyhole, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate one for him. Also, another interesting note, I'm watching Brandon Wilson right now in 7th place. Remember that train he's pulling? Eisler, Russo, Lowendick and those guys? Well, I'm seeing Brandon Wilson slipping up more and more, and he's trying ever harder. He's full on 107% in each and every corner. And Eisler is putting in some tremendous pressure on this man. And I'm surprised if Brandon Wilson doesn't make a mistake here in the next 2 or 3 laps. In fact, I'd be very surprised if by the time we go to lap 16, which is in 2 laps, Christian Eisler is still sitting in 8th place. I think he's going to get that 7th.
I mean, through the S's once again. Keeps him in check. 727. Ooh, not looking so hot, though, over that crest. Loses a little bit of ground, and something has happened to strike cars behind them. Looks like another single car incident. The number 7, unfortunately, falls to the tail end of the field with that. We'll stay on this as there's a little look to the inside through the carousel. Eisler trying to see if he can do something unorthodox, maybe.
Yeah, he's very good on those fast corners. He's the 4 GD. Not so good throughout the elevation changes, but in these fast corners, he's very rapid, and he's able to stay very consistent. Now, Brandon Wilson through turn number 1, this time more consistent, but once again, as they come to the keyhole, look at Brandon's line. He's taking that wide line. Eisler is growing smart to it. Earlier, it was a different man. It was Fredes behind Brandon Wilson. Now it's Eisler, and the Iceman, he's keeping his cool, and he's biding his time. But Brandon Wilson, he's cleaned it up this lap. Last time by and earlier on, he was looking a little bit shaky. But now he's, well, knock on wood, but now he's looking a little bit better once again. But it's gonna be something we'll have to keep an eye on here, Joe, because I don't think Brandon Wilson is feeling too well behind the wheel of that car, especially fighting against the almighty 4GD. I mean, give the man credit. He's only about half a second of Car Modo's pace, who is by far and away the fastest Porsche on track.
So saw glimpses of that Bimmer getting very close to the back of Eisler for a moment. He's now fallen back. That's Russo that's still chasing. We talked about the gap that Wilson's pulled, and I think it couldn't have come at a better time because as they come up to the place where he keeps opening the door for Eisler, Eisler's not anywhere close enough to try and pull that move again. A little bit of connection problem, though, there with that Porsche.
Yeah, and remember when I mentioned about Brandon Wilson pace, 119.7 for comparison, Car Modo 119.2. Guess who else is driving a Porsche that is going very well right now?
Stephen
Nash.
Yeah.
And he's passing Fredez for the 14th place.
There,
so, you know.
I was going to say, there we see the results of Fredez's crash, though. It looked like his straight line speed was badly hampered. So he was easily overtaken by the number 11. Let's see if he tries to stay with him maybe and ride his coattails a little here.
He could do that, and I think he should do that for now. Try to get that draft and at least help a little bit with the aero damage, because the effect of the draft, this is something not many people actually realize, but the effect of the draft is slightly bigger when you have aero damage in the front of your car. So you get more advantage out of the draft, and it makes sense because, you know, of course, if you have already damaged the aerodynamics, which affect the drag caused by the air that you're punching through, well, if you have something reducing that drag, then you're going to reduce the effect of the aero damage. And we can see that in the effect here. Fredez is right up to Steve Nash.
Yeah. So let's see what he does now on the way out of the keyhole. Not the greatest of exits there from the 96, but he should be feeling a little bit of that toe. As they come down through the kink, 145, 150 miles per hour. And they get onto the binders at 160, get it woed up down into China Beach, and he stayed with them. And he can't lose too much more, it looks like.
Yeah, and that's very good for him. And the pace of Stephen Ash, 119.5. He got a clean overtake, of course, last time by, so didn't lose any time there. 119.5. The guys ahead of him, 119.7 for Sean Romick, Brett Turman, and Jean-Marc Tremblay. And ahead, Ted Lowendick, 19.9. So, you know, he's catching them.
Jumped back to 7th place. Wilson being caught by Eisler once again. It took him a few laps here. Now he's closed it down. Oh, but he's way off the apex through turn 1. That'll scupper his opportunity up here into the keyhole.
Yeah, it's not a game of where's Baldo. It's a game of where's Apex with the Mid-Ohio's turn 1, you know.
I always had trouble finding it, to be honest.
Yeah, they should put some red and white stripes on the inside curb so it would be easier to find. I think the problem is that usually curbs are red and white, but this one's yellow, so they can't find the Baldo.
They come through the madness section now. Oh, a little bit of a slide from Eisler. I'm noticing a lot of marbles, though, through this part of the track offline. It's always traditionally been single file through there, but man, it seems like nobody has been driving anywhere but that one little strip.
Yeah, and once you get out of that little strip, you make a tiny mistake or something. Well, okay, if your name is Stephen Ash, you can still pass on the outside on the marbles, which is just insane. And all the more credit to him for that earlier pass we saw earlier on. And iRacing, if you're listening, we're gonna see that in the top 10 as well, okay? Okay? Trust a Finn. When I see a good pass and when I say it's a good pass, it's a good pass. Anyway, Mid-Ohio, I think the problem is even more pronounced than usual, and also because we have, I say only about 22 cars here, of which 19 are still racing. You don't really see too many people going side by side through there. You don't see many lappers and so on to clean up those marbles, and the more they race, the more they're just gonna, you know, punch that single line through there, and it's kind of like in dirt racing. The thing you Americans love so much, dirt racing, dirt oval racing. You're gonna have a single line through there that has all the grip.
Mac Miller with a little bit of damage on the rear, because I'm not sure if we got a replay. He lost it going into the carousel. Let's see. Looks like we've got it pulled up. That cost him a lot of spots. In fact, I think he's the last car running now. Ooh, yeah. Once the tires were in the grass, there was no stopping it.
No, and well, do you know how to avoid that? Avoid that little incident that he had.
How's that?
Don't put your tires on the grass.
Keep it on the
No,
black stuff, right? That's the whole
yeah,
point.
yeah. But the thing that, and that's what makes racing so interesting in general, because you think that okay, they're just gonna going around the track, very fast and fast race cars. Oh, and we have a pit car in the pit as well. That's Ted Lowendick coming into the pit lane. But yeah, the thing is, the limit is so narrow, and these guys are dancing on the knife edge all the time. So you are already pushing it. You are already going so wide. You're so close to the edge of the track, both on the entry and on the exit, and you're cutting the apex. You go just a little bit harder. You lose a concentration for just a fraction of a second, and you're gonna be wide, and you're gonna look silly. So it's hard, and it's a 1 hour race. Imagine these guys doing 3 or 6 or 12 hours. Granted, usually not solo, but I've seen it done as well.
You saw the 172 machine in and out of his pit stall. Curiously, Lowendick was leading the train, and typically we see cars who are behind come in first to try and leapfrog, but Ted Lowendick doing the reverse here. He returns in 6th place, and you can see he's got a little traffic in front of him. There's our
Yeah,
leader on screen as well.
but that's just one car. That's Sean Duhamel that's ahead of him, and I think Sean's gonna, get out of the way pretty quickly. Not gonna prove too much of a hamper to Ted Lowendick. But he started the game very early. I almost wonder if he had some damage or something before it, or wasn't feeling too well about the car, because that's an early stop.
Early for this series, that's for sure. We're just about halfway through, and you usually don't see
Oh,
people
Thurman's
do
in the
that
wall.
before
Red Thurman's in the wall.
halfway. He is, and oh, this is almost exactly like what we saw for Fredes.
Yeah, he went to the grass. That's exactly what I was talking about one lap ago. There's so much on the hair edge that he puts just one wheel on the grass, exiting turn number 1, and he's doing 120 miles an hour there, exiting turn number 1. And you have grip, and suddenly one of your rear tires is just gonna find no grip at all. You are going to spin, and there's not anything, nobody in the world is saving that car. You're just going to the wall.
As you mentioned, Lowendick did get by Duhamel very easily, so that moves him up 1. But we look at 7th once again, and Brandon Wilson leading Eisler, leading Russo. We haven't had a change. A little wide on the entry, though, for Brandon Wilson. Tucks it back in nicely, but quite a different line from those behind him.
Yeah, we've seen that a couple of times from Brandon Wilson now, as is the wide line on the hairpin, the keyhole, and I almost wonder if that's an intentional thing, because he knows that that's not really an overtaking opportunity. We see him here once again, taking the wide line, just focusing on the exit, and that is defense 101. He knows that on raw, pure pace, he can't really get away from Eisler, he can't really get away from Russo, but he's putting his car in all the right places, and most importantly, he's not compromising his exits, and that's the most important thing. And he stayed so consistent with that if he manages to avoid the tiny little slides, if he can just keep it on the black stuff and not do what Fredes has or Thurman have done in turn number 1, I don't know. I'm changing my mind a little bit. I said earlier on, and I fully admit that I wasn't a believer earlier on. I was thinking Brandon Wilson's gonna lose it. He was looking so hairy. But the further this race goes on, the more he continues to impress me with his decision making. Once again, we see him going wide. Once again, we see Eisler going to the inside, but Eisler has to brake. There's no room there. That's a closing door.
And that actually hurt Eisler on the way off. You could see how much ground he lost. So as long as he keeps those steady lines and gets that good exit, that's a bad exit. Can he catch the car? Clatters through the cones. Going the outside. Eisler streams by. And oh, is another spot going to get lost here? Russo thought about it, but he wasn't quite there. Wilson focusing on that exit. Could this be his saving grace? Defense to the inside from Eisler, down towards China Beach. I don't think he's close enough. Wilson stays behind him, and that is that spot lost.
Remember how I said half a lap before that happened? As long as he doesn't do a Freddy's or a Terman.
So you're saying that
And
was
then
your
he
fault?
goes ahead. Yeah, I completely, once again, hand raised, that's my fault, commentator's curse, I'm sorry, Brandon Wilson. But yeah, that's a real risk here, but look at him trying so hard right now, as they come to the last sector actually. Brandon Wilson getting closer and closer to Eisler, and I almost wonder if he has a little bit up his sleeve now, or if he just got pissed off due to the fact that he made a mistake. That's not a good thing normally when you're driving a race car. Don't get angry, don't get emotional. You have to be a robot. But, sometimes you can muster just a little bit, maybe a tenth of extra pace out of yourself by basically spanking yourself to a better speed.
Interestingly, that actually moved him back down to where he qualified. Ooh, he sends it
Whoa!
in deep, coming towards that early apex. Thankfully, they didn't make contact. Wilson is getting a little greedy here. And looks like we had a pass between Tremblay and Ash. Maybe a pass. They're going to be side by side coming off the corner. This is for 11th spot. Looks like Ash has a little bit better momentum as they come down the straight. Is he going to cover off the inside? He's holding to the racing line. Tremblay doesn't attack. He's going to let him go.
Yeah, clever move from Jean-Marc Tremblay there. Don't attack Steve when he's on a roll like this. But Brandon Wilson, he's still right up close and he forced Eisler to a mistake. Eisler's gonna half spin and they both go into the ball. Eisler lost it over the crest and they both go into the ball. Be careful coming back to the track, boys. Oh, both of them make it through. That's such a blind spot. Eisler still reversing and then they come back. Wow. He forced Eisler to a mistake, did Brandon Wilson, and as a result, he also got taken out himself. That's unfortunate.
It looked like he even reacted to it because he tightened his line right over that crest, and it just, unfortunately, the car was heading on a trajectory that I don't think he could have avoided.
And ironically, he would have been fine had he taken the wide line himself.
So Eisler's now 14th because of that, and Wilson's actually just ahead of Ash. No, well, he's barely ahead of Ash now. They were side by side through the keyhole. They're going to come down the long back stretch. Wilson looking like he's lacking a little top speed. Oh, jukes him! Comes to the inside. Stephen Ash manages to get his nose in, but I don't think he's got the job done quite yet. Almost gets into the back of him, taking some notes from Newgarden there. Been watching IndyCar races.
Yeah, I hope he didn't watch the finish of that race.
Well, at Mid-Ohio, 2 years in a row, we saw Newgarden pull moves like that down into China Beach with some fantastic overtakes. And look at the straight line speed of Ash. He is looking pretty handy right now over that number 10.
Yeah, and Stephen Ash, he's just got a bag full of moves today. He's pulling into the backpack. He's pulling into the bin bag of moves. And he already pulled the hair out of the hat. He pulled the silk strings out of his cuffs and whatever, those standard magic trick stuff. But I think for his final, he just might saw Brandon Wilson in half. That's the kind of thing he's gonna do, because look at him just switching over last time by going a little bit wide, this time by exiting the keyhole corner, hitting the grass a little bit, and to the outside, to the inside, he went last time by zigzagging a little bit, and not close enough this time by, but I don't think Brandon Wilson is gonna know which way to go here.
A lot of dirt on the exit of the keyhole for Ash. I'm surprised he's as close as he is. That car seems like a rocket ship today. Getting close to where that pit window is closing down, too. I wonder who we'll see duck in. Try to get a little bit of an early stop, alternate strategy to those around them, and who will stay out.
And in endurance racing, a pit maneuver ending a good battle is actually perfectly fine.
Very strong here through the carousel. This time it's Porsche versus Porsche. Back onto the front stretch. Wilson strong off of that carousel section. We also do the same here. It's decent, actually. Wow, that was a great run mid-corner. Ash has no response.
Not at all. So Stephen Ash having to wait back a little bit. I think he knows the pit window is close too, so he's not fighting it too hard. But Brandon Wilson, Stephen Ash, both guys have made mistakes earlier on in this race. And remember Brandon Wilson, after he made his mistake and had to let Christian Eisler through, remember some of those ways he tried to get into Eisler's head, tried to get the Iceman to melt? Well, he's still driving a little bit angry, but he's once again in a different position. He's ahead in this battle is Brandon Wilson. He's been there pretty much all race long, trying to harry off defending and attacking driver. This time it is Stephen Ash though, and oh, here goes Wilson a little bit wide, getting a little bit loose, and Stephen Ash getting right up there once again. Those tires are not looking too happy on either of these cars, and we are only 35 minutes into the race.
Who ducks in? Who stays out? Both of them stay out this time through. Ooh, this is looking a lot better though for Ash. Last time he lost a little bit of ground at this point. What about through turn one? He also wasn't quite as confident through here. This one looks better as well. He stays within a few tenths. Maybe not this corner, but maybe into China Beach. Is he going to try and set it up? Both of them chuck it into the turn. Both of them coming very wide mid-corner, straightening out that exit, and it works great for the number 11. He is right behind the 10. He's getting the slipstream, making sure to keep it as far inside as he can go. Wilson forcing him the hard way around into the braking. Ash is looking strong once again on the marbles. Somehow that car is finding grip, and he does it again.
Wow. So Stephen Ash, last time by remember the story, he went to the outside, then faked to the inside. Brandon Wilson had to go all the way to the inside to make sure that doesn't happen again. Hold it to the right, and then Stephen Ash says, thank you, I'm just gonna take the outside, brake a little bit later, and an incredibly brave and precise move to actually hold it together, round the outside, and take the inside line onto the next corner. And Stephen Ash being promoted to 9th place in this race, and he is free to chase. So let's see the gap. Stephen Ash, 42 seconds behind the lead, 7 seconds behind Sean Rogan.
Looks like we get another hitter. I think Fred is down on the lane. Not too shocked at this one. We knew he was going to be needing some repairs, so this might actually be a long stop for him. Yeah, that 9th place for Ash is not going to sound like much just looking at paper, but remembering that he went from 20th after, what was it, lap 1 or 2, to come back into the top 10 on a track where it's very tough to pass is a mighty fine feat. Fredes returns in 15th with what looks like a normal stop time.
Yeah, I think Fredes was gauging the pace of his car and thinking, well, okay, he's losing the straight line speed, but aside from that, there wasn't anything too substantial. And he was doing some calculations, looking at his lap times and thinking, I'm not gonna repair this car because that's gonna take so long to get it fully fixed, and I'm not even sure if I can get it fully fixed. So, I'm just gonna keep going, fighting it out, and then finishing this race and trying to bring home whatever points he can.
Meanwhile, Rubilar has held on to the back of Stevens. It's never gone higher than what it is right now, which is just over 2 seconds. We ride on board with Rubilar as he gives chase on Jesse Stevens, who's looking for win number 4 here. And Modov's still off the podium, curiously. He's 3 seconds behind Mies and has not been able to gain.
He's not a happy customer right now, Karl Modov. Rubilar, though, he's chasing that maiden win of the season, and he's chasing it very hard. And imagine the confidence boost it gives him knowing that the man ahead of him, who just did an 18.9, Rubilar also 18.9, that man, Jesse Stevens, is the fastest driver this series has, Rubilar! What a save! I think that was a 2-foot magic save. I think he went to the Finnish driving school there and thought, well, I'm just gonna save that. 2-foot. Brake and throttle.
We saw it from on board. Let's see what it looked like from the TV cameras. You know, I think he just got too much of that inside curb.
Yeah, he did. He did. But the way he saved that was very impressive. It's
Quick
so
hands
easy.
and quick thinking.
Yeah, it's so easy to overcorrect it immediately by your gut instinct and just turn into the slide, skid too much and slam into the outside wall. It's so easy to just floor it and lose it, thinking it's nothing. He did exactly the right thing in the blink of an eye, and that's what separates the best from the rest.
You can see Tremblay and Thurman, the SRT teammates, doing their stops. Tremblay is going to exit out. Lowendick will go by, so Ted stays the highest driver who has pitted. Not many of the front runners have been in.
No, I thought for a second Stevens pitted, but that was Mac Miller actually, who was between Rubilar and Stevens. So I got fooled by a lapped car once again, but at least this time it was just a pit stop.
Yes, yeah, quite a few of the drivers that Stevens is coming up on at this point is lapped cars. Some of them have pitted, but some have not. He's looking at putting a number of people a lap down, I think, because we've still got 18 minutes left to go. Now Stevens himself will need to come in for his stop, mind you.
Yeah, he does, and I wonder when he does that.
Romig comes in, taking his pit stop. And actually, he was ahead of Ash, was he not? So that's one less person Ash has to try and deal with. Worth noting that Rubilar, since I last spoke, well, he has lost ground now. It was hovering at just under 2 seconds for so long, and something must have happened because it is now up to 3.5.
Joe, it was that mistake at turn 1, and he comes into the pit lane.
Oh,
he spins in the pit entry! Nicolas Rubilar has just spun his car in the pit entry, and that's gonna look, I'm afraid, a bit like that scene where that one English agent whose name escapes me is trying to reverse around in a nuclear power plant. Austin Powers.
Yes, we've used this term a few times here on this channel, pulling an Austin Powers. I've seen people do this before, blowing the entry to this pit lane. It's unassuming, and you don't realize how much you got to practice a quick entry into there. Unfortunately for Rubilar, that's probably going to cost him multiple positions.
Yeah, and he comes back very quickly onto the track, but let's see, out of those who have pitted, who's ahead of him. Well, it's difficult to gauge now. We're just gonna see later, but I think this might just allow Karl Modov to potentially get into the podium in this race.
I think you're right. I think he was close enough that he's got something there. Mies definitely has second place. There's Karl Modov. Let's see. We should see these top drivers in pretty soon. In fact, our leader is in right now.
And he doesn't screw up the pit entry. Mies is coming in too, and he's turning in nice and tidy as well. And the thing is, Modov is continuing for another lap.
So, apparently quite good on fuel, the 948 today. As Stevens finds his pit stall, Mies now going to join in behind him. And this will give us a better idea of just how much Rubilar lost. Stevens back out and running.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch Rubilar here. He's just now coming to the pit entry part, penultimate corner, onto the main straight, turning left now, and onto the main straight he comes, goes past the start-finish line, and ahead of him, that's Michael Ross he just passed. So he has lost to Rodrigo Mies, and I believe that means he has also lost in effect to Karl Modov.
If Karl gets his pit stop right, then yes, indeed, he should come out ahead. And, did Karl Modov just have a spin? This was into China Beach.
Oh, he locked up his he's locked up his rear axle all of a sudden. That just snapped on him. I think he turned into a smaller gear. I mean, it almost looked like he pulled the handbrake. But listen to the noise. If we can get an onboard of this, listen to the noise the car makes.
Here we are on the dash.
Oh, you know what? He was coasting into China Beach, trying to save fuel, I think.
Pushed it too
and
far.
then he turned the engine on into the corner, and it locked up the rear axle.
He's coasting now. I think he's almost out of fuel. He was very slow into the turn, into pit
And
lane.
he was on the last sector. He was doing 80 k's an hour all throughout there. He was doing highway speeds. I think he forgot to pit.
I think you're right. And that is a very uncharacteristic mistake. Oh, for a second, I thought he was going to exit out.
too.
It looks like it was just a blink. Eisler, however, does make it to his pit stall in time. He'll be the last driver to take his fuel. So what does this do now? Rubelar stays in third then by that miracle. Ross is behind him, but losing out. Rubelar still mildly faster than the 67. Cal Quinn gets promoted up to 5th. Russo gets promoted up to 6th. Oh my goodness. Eisler is out in 12th position.
Yeah. Eisler is out in 12th position. Where is Karl Modov right now? He's sitting.
Oh, yes, that's what
Yeah, he's sitting. I can't believe it. No, he's sitting outside of top 10. He's actually.
He's in 14?
Yeah, he's sitting behind Fredes and behind Eisler. Well, Karl Modov, that's an error and a half. I know it can happen really easily when you're concentrating on the driving and you're thinking that, oh, there's one more lap left, and then there isn't, and he's trying to desperately save fuel, and then he spins around, which doesn't help matters at all, and then he has to coast the rest of the lap, and, well, you can see how much a simple error like that, a really simple and an innocent error like that, is gonna cost him time. He's outside of top 10, and that's not only the race he has lost, that might just be it for the championship.
Fortunately for today, it's a bit of a 90s pop song for Karl Modov. He's his own worst enemy. So the 948 really is going to be kicking himself after today. This will set him
it's his,
so far back from Stevens.
Yeah, it's his bittersweet symphony.
Nice one. Oh man, Jesse Stevens, who is now looking well clear for a 4th win in a row. 12 more minutes. This isn't sewn up yet. He's got to execute from here on out. Mies still about 7.5 seconds back. But Mies himself is actually looking pretty handy. I'd say that, you talked about the difficulty keeping the cars on the black stuff. Rodrigo Mies has done just that. He's taken advantage of Rubelar's mistakes. He's taken advantage of Karl Modov's mistakes, and that's gifted him a P2 today.
Yeah, and Rodrigo Mies, remember early part of the season, he was so strong looking at Sebring. He beat, well, he didn't beat, but he was fighting with Jesse Stevens on even terms. That was an epic race-long battle, and that's the race where Stevens was actually being a little bit naughty. Oh, how the turntables have turned. Now it's Rodrigo Mies in 2nd place and Jesse Stevens driving clean as a whisker as a result of, well, driving alone. So the answer, we were wondering early on, Joe, what's the answer to Jesse Stevens? How he's gonna challenge Karl Modov? The answer was drive faster. Sometimes the simple solution is the best one.
Indeed. One of our best battles is in the mid-pack, and, well, it's a guy I think who doesn't want any more screen time. That's Wilson, yet again, trying to stay within the top 10. Jean-Marc Tremblay now closing up behind, and Christian Eisler, Fredes, and Modov closing in fast.
Well, Brandon, let's see how you drive a race car and how to defend a position 101. You got 10 minutes. You got Christian Eisler, Ignacio Fredes, Karl Modov behind you. No pressure, mate. Go and have a laugh. Break a leg.
As they come up out of Thunder Valley, Wilson is closing in on Rodriguez, but that is a lap down car, and he knows it. He's going to pull out of the way. He's going to have to get in the way of someone eventually here, though, and unfortunately, it's going to be Eisler out of the final turn.
Oh, and Modov's gonna get past here on Fredes. He's gonna make a move into turn number 1 with the lap car ahead of him. Are they gonna make it through? That's gonna be so tight. I think they can. And the lap car did an excellent job of just getting out of the way. Kenny Rodriguez showing his racecraft, letting Car Modov go by. And Fredes, look at how much ground he lost on that exchange. That was so well read by Car Modov. I'm really impressed how he did that one.
Everybody involved in that read the situation perfectly, I'd say. And that will give Karl Modov 13th now. Eisler is his next one up the road. These two have had plenty of races against one another, but usually it's a little higher up in the pack, not down for 12th.
Yeah, indeed. So we're just gonna wonder what could have been for Eisler, for Modov, for Fredes in this race. They would have been like way up higher in the standings, but then again, that shows the nature of Mid-Ohio Sports Car course. It is a cruel mistress, it is a difficult track, and in here, one of the key things to succeed is not making mistakes. We see who are in the front, they haven't made mistakes, whereas further back, those guys have made mistakes and they're gonna have to fight back. As a side note, I think there's a bit of damage to the left side of Brandon Wilson's car to the rear. I might be seeing things, but he might be fighting just a little bit of damage, which might help explain why exactly that car is a little bit slower.
Eagle eye on our fin here. You can see it on the onboard. And remember, he did make contact earlier on with that spin that we saw. I think it was with Eisler when he was fighting with him. Ooh, and this is a good run on Wilson. Jean-Marc Tremblay. Maybe a peek to the inside, but not a serious move.
Yeah, he's not just trying too hard yet, but Jean-Marc Tremblay, he hasn't been too often in the top 10 this season. He's one of the veteran drivers of this series, but I think he's now looking into a good race result. And one of those things he's gonna have to pull off is, he's gonna have to pass Brandon Wilson, and he's gonna have to get past Brandon Wilson before Eisler, Modov, and Fredes catch back up to him. Because, he's living on borrowed time right now. I think both Eisler and Modov are looking at the battle ahead as more of a checkpoint in their own battle than anything they have to take seriously. Look at Modov. He's caught up to Eisler and he's so close into turn 1. Nothing doing there, but we're gonna have a fantastic four-way scrap. And these two guys are gonna have to get past Tremblay and Wilson. They are faster than both Tremblay and Wilson right now, but they also have to keep each other in check and keep each other involved in the battle. So it's kind of like multi-class, but in a single class. The gaps are not huge, but they are there. Modov with a great run.
Eisler doesn't defend. He's letting him at the inside. Maybe. No, he's going to drift across. And there goes Modov. Now he is through. So that puts him up into 12th. And that is not going to be good news for Tremblay and Wilson, because Modov has looked quick, even though he's been a little bit mistake-prone today. As they come through madness one more time. Can Tremblay and Wilson stay ahead for only 6 more minutes?
Yeah, Wilson going a little bit wide, going over the hill, and Tremblay is gonna see that, and he's gonna catch that, and he's just gonna... I think what Tremblay has to do here, he's just gonna have to focus on what's ahead. Modov will come if he comes, although if Modov comes so fast into the penultimate corner, it's gonna be mighty difficult to focus on the battle ahead.
Absolutely, and Tremblay certainly wasn't afraid of opening the door into the carousel. He was very wide into there, but Modov didn't manage to slip through. As they come up to the keyhole, I think we're down to about 5 laps left here, 4 or 5 laps. Ooh, look at Modov once again squaring off that exit, looking for the run, carrying the speed. He gets a decent one. I don't think this is going to be enough, though.
No, it's not going to be enough just yet. So he's going to have to hold back for now. Well, I wonder if Tremblay can really put a challenge to Brandon Wilson here before Modov's gonna put the challenge to Tremblay. Because I think for Tremblay, his only option is to attack and attack quickly, put everything on this last portion of this lap and the early portion of the next lap, because he has to get past Brandon Wilson to buy himself some time. Because the more Karl Modov is gonna be battling with Wilson, the more Tremblay could get away. Of course, the opposite is also true. The more Karl Modov spends time battling with Tremblay, the more Wilson can get away and potentially sneak himself a top 10 from this race. So really, they are kind of have to, one of them is behind, gonna get eaten up, but the one ahead might just survive this one. We'll have to see.
Survival of the fittest, they say. Ooh, this is a good run up the straight to the keyhole. Mode off as they get onto the binders. Loves that wide entry. Trying to give himself the speed. This one looks a lot better. And he is already closing in on that SRT Porsche. This is going to be a tough ask to hold him back. Does he fight it? Does he let him through? He's not defending. Modov gets to the inside, but he's very hot into the corner. He gets the car woed up just in time, and he snags the position.
Yeah, and I think Tremblay wasn't gonna block off the inside. He was going to lose a lot of time there, but he also made it difficult for Modov. He didn't give it as much as he, fought it, tried to outbrake him on the outside, and also didn't give Modov too much room to work it. But he also let him know that if you have the move and if you can make it stick, then by all means, get past if you make it clean. And well-read situation by both of them. I really like it from Tremblay that he didn't try to put any desperate blocks in there or something silly like that. And he still has his chance to get past Brandon Wilson here if Brandon Wilson battles with Modov, and he has a chance to catch up, but the time is really running out for them.
Yeah, down to 3 minutes left now. Straight line speed for Karl Modov has been fantastic today. Whoa, and he forces him into a mistake. Wilson into the tires with only a couple laps to go and watches the entire train sneak by.
That's a heartbreak, and he comes into the corner. You can see it here. He's clean. I think he's watching his mirrors. Is Carr gonna make a move? Carr showed his nose, and that was enough to force Brandon Wilson to brake too late, lock up his brake with just a couple of laps remaining, and no way that thing is gonna turn. No way. He went to the tires, smacked them with his left side, and he's gonna be beating himself black and blue over that mistake.
Boy, we've seen a number of drivers unfortunately make mistakes today, and this has been a tough one. Taking a look at our leader, Jesse Stevens. We're down to 2 minutes to go. Laps running at about 119. So let's see. This will be tight on if we get 1 or 2 laps left.
Also, we have a decent battle for 16th, actually. Kyle Streichart and Mac Miller. Very close. Miller's going to the inside, gonna try to make a move there, nothing doing, but into the infield section. And this is a little bit further back. But Joe, Kyle Streichart, Mac Miller, I don't know. I kind of rate them higher than 16th or 17th when it comes to usual positions.
Remember, we've seen Mac Miller sneak up in the top 5s before. He has days where he's pretty decent out there, but today doesn't seem to be one of them. As that is Rubelar coming to lap them just behind, flashing his lights. Granted, Rubelar is, well, no, he is kind of close to Ross still, so he can't sit around forever here. He does need to get by eventually.
And Joe, it's an interesting question. What do you do if you're a lapped car about to get lapped and you have your own battle to consider? Do you keep fighting or do you let the lap car go by? And here we see the answer, Mac Miller just being a gentleman and letting Rubelar get the track position here, and Michael Ambrose is going to receive the same treatment, I think. And that's a clever one from Miller, because the way he did it means he's going to get the draft down the back straight, and he knows that Rubelar is going to get past Kyle, most likely in these corners here. And he can sneak one on Kyle if Kyle doesn't watch his mirrors. That's it.
It's an awkward place to try and get through. The SRT Porsche covers off the inside, though. That's going to send the 97 wide. So he had a shot, but just didn't quite pan out. White flag is now waved for Jesse Stevens, who comes through turn 1 yet again. Nobody in front of him, nobody behind him. A man who is in a class of his own today.
Absolute perfection from Jesse Stevens. Nothing, not a wheel put wrong in one of the most difficult tracks on the calendar, and the late surge of his season. He's like post-summer break Lewis Hamilton here. He wasn't so good on the early part of the season, was playing second fiddle to Car Moto, but here right now, he has really shown that it's his time to shine. It is Jesse Stevens and nobody else.
So we watch this battle a little bit farther back. Russo dealing with Romig just behind him, and Stephen Ash coming through. Ash now up to 8th. Can he get 2 more on the final lap around? That's going to be a tough ask because they're a little bit ahead at this point. It's going to have to force him to be aggressive. We'll get to that in a bit and see what he can get out of it. But for now, cameras on Jesse Stevens. Victory here today as the checkered flag flies for a 4th win in a row for the 36 car.
Unbelievable job from him. And hats off to Rodrigo Mies as well. We go back to the battle between Rafael Russo, Sean Romig, Stephen Ash. Meanwhile, finishing P number 3 is Nicolas Rubilar. Outside of your pictures, coming to across the line soon. But Russo, Romig, and Stephen Ash, can Ash pull it off in these last couple of corners, Joe?
I don't know. There's not really many places to try and pass, but we've seen Stephen Ash do it once around the outside of turn 11. I don't think he's got the overlap to do that again. And indeed, Romig looks like he'll stay safe. If he can keep it tidy through these last few corners, he'll be good. Ash approaches, but time has run out. He needed 1 more lap to get these 2, or at least 1, and he'll have to settle for 8th.
It wasn't for the lack of trying. He was fully sideways on that last corner a couple of times. Tremblay's gonna finish ahead of Eisler as well, and behind them Fredes, Wilson, and Brett Turman as well gonna finish this race. So, Joe, it was a fantastic race, and it was a great win for Jesse Stevens. But another thing that is great is that we have some fine partners here in this series. So, should you take us to a little bit of a break?
Absolutely. And we're going to take that break right now as we prepare for the post-race show, where you'll see the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. And on screen, you can catch all the upcoming racing here on GSRC. Welcome back to Mid-Ohio Sportscar Course. It's always fun for me to get to call a race at what I consider my home track. And up at the front of it today, the PRL GTE Sportscar Series was won by Jesse Stevens for the 4th time in a row. As compared to Lewis Hamilton. I think that is apt, the way that he has come to the fore. Rodrigo Mies wound up in 2nd place, surviving what others did not. Nicolas Rubilar, give him credit, even though he had a poor entry into pit lane, he did come back to 3rd. Now, luck played a little bit in that, as others had problems. But Michael Ross was behind him with a 4th, and Horatio Kauquin with a bit of a quiet top 5. Rafael Russo. We didn't really count on this, but from 12th to 6th, he gained a lot of spots. So did Romick from 14th to 7th. And then you get Stephen Ash, unfortunately not getting a podium today, eventually winding up 8th. Ted Lowendick with 9th, and Carl Modoff with a shocker, winding up with 10th.
Jean-Marc Tremblay just outside the top 10, heartbreak for him, finishing 11th. Then it's Christian Eisler 12th, Ignacio Fredes 13th, Brandon Wilson ending up 14th, Brett Turman, Kyle Strikeart, Mac Miller, Kenny Rodriguez, Sean Duhamel finishing this race in respective order. Then the list of retirements, 3 cars, Dave Peterson, Don Olson, and Ken Huber rounding out your 22 car field.
And up at the top of it all was Jesse Stevens with win number 4, Jesse. This is an impressive string that you are on. And I have to say, we at first were wondering if Rubelar was going to cause you problems at the qualifying because it was close. And then suddenly 3/10 over him. Where did you find 3/10 at a track as short as this?
I honestly hit all my apexes like perfect. It was honestly a dream lap. I was up 2/10 in sector 1 alone. I don't know how that happened.
Sometimes it all just falls into place, I suppose. And then in the race, you looked like you had a little bit of company because Rubelar was holding on for at least a little bit before he had problems. At any point, did you feel threatened or were you just managing pace?
When I felt the rears slowly start to go, and he was actually looked like he was catching me a tenth a lap. I was starting to do the math as to how much longer the race was and see if I could pull anything out in the pits. But yeah, he was definitely on pace. He was really quick today.
Well, we've come to a track here today where it's difficult to pass, and you put it on pole and took well advantage of that. I think you're going to need those skills next week because we've got Sonoma coming up. Can you put it on pole again there?
I honestly don't know. Sonoma's one of my weaker tracks. This track and Road Atlanta are my favorite tracks on the sim, so I'm probably just gonna do a damage limitation on Sonoma and see what the best place I can get.
All right. Well, glad to see you're a fan of one of my favorites out here. Again, congratulations. Anybody you want to thank before you head out?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody and all the sponsors at Radicals Online. Can't praise them enough. Took me on like 2 years ago, and it's been a great matchup ever since. Uh, everybody at PRL with all the organization that makes all this happen, and all you guys at GSRC for the stream.
Thank you very much for coming and talking to us. That was Jesse Stevens with another win here. And up next, not second place finisher, but third today for Nicholas Rubelar as Ozzy has caught up with him.
Nicholas, congratulations. P number 3, a great race for you, at least up until the pit stop. What happened there? Well, the cat's got his tongue. I think we're waiting on a response a little bit from Nicholas. So,
No, yeah,
oh,
no,
there you go.
sorry.
No worries,
Sorry.
no worries.
Yeah, I had the push to talk button.
No
Yeah.
worries. But yeah, great race for you up until the pit stop, Nicholas. Can you tell what happened there exactly? Because we saw you spinning on the pit entry.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. And yeah, before the pit stop, I had an encounter with a lapper car. I mean, and from that point on and so on, I really lost the focus and just carry on too much speed on the pit entry and spun around. Thankfully, I didn't crash the car, so I could still finish the race.
Yeah, and that was very, very fortunate. You lost a lot of time, unfortunately, but still managed a podium out here today. But you were on the pace, man. Jesse Stevens, and you were lapping on equal pace as you came closer and closer to pit stops. Jesse just said that he was actually a little bit worried that you might catch him. Where's this sudden input of pace come from? Are you actually a fan of Mid-Ohio? Do you consider this one of your strong circuits, or have you found something in the later part of the season?
Actually, I'm really a fan of Mid Ohio. I used to do some IA races with the computer, with the Mazda. I really race a lot on this track, so I really know how to take the turns and carry on more speed. So yeah, I really know the track, and I felt pretty comfortable with the setup that my team gave me. So everything came together to get a good result today.
Indeed, so good result for you and good result for your team as well. Punto CR Racing Red. You and Rodrigo Mies finishing in P number 2 and P number 3. So that's gonna bring you right up in the team points. How has it been working with Rodrigo?
Yeah, really nice. I mean, it's like my goal, my point. I mean, every time I practice, I have to. My target is the his lap time, so I have a really good rival to get on this championship.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And first guy you should want to beat is your teammate. Well, Nicola, one last question before we let you go. Sonoma next week. How's the track for you?
Uh, on first instance, I didn't know the track. I mean, I didn't know the name of the track, but I remember that one from Gran Turismo 4, because on Gran Turismo 4 it was called Infinity Raceway. So I I kind of like know the track, but I never raced it on iRacing.
Yeah, it's a difficult track and a very technical track, but I'm sure you will actually quite like it. It has some things that are similar to Mid Ohio in a lot of the ways in terms of the corners. But Nicola, one last thing before we let you go. Who would you like to thank and who would you like to say hello to?
I would like to thank my team, who's always supporting me, giving me the setups to race here, and yeah, I know everyone that's following on the street.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you very much for the interview and congratulations for the third place, man.
Thank you.
Well, that was Nicholas, and I believe, Joe, before we let our viewers go and before we let anyone else go, I do believe you have some final messages for our viewers.
Indeed, we do. Part of that message is a big thank you to our sponsors. Of course, starting with Simulation Motorsports Affinity. They can be found at simsa.net if you want to get involved with the worldwide sim racing community. And also ButtKicker. They make products for your sim rig. You can find those at thebuttkicker.com. Thanks to iRacing for putting us on IESN once again. And also, thanks goes out to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts that you can see listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how I get hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Ossian, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can find our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store. We've got it at gsrc.storenvy.com. We have a link in the description below. Very easy to find down there if you don't want to have to type that in. As we mentioned, the next race, we're going across the country over to California. That'll be at Sonoma, Tuesday, May 12th. At 9 p.m. Eastern, but we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.